Oh, Movember. Prostate cancer affects 1 in 6 men.
I ain't gonna be no statistic. Who's your mo for?
Welcome in, everybody, once again to the UMC Health System Avalanche-Journal pregame show. I'm Nick Kosmiter, joined as always by Don Williams. Zach Long is going to be with us here in just a few minutes. And Don, today we're talking about Texas Tech, Kansas. The Red Raiders are coming off their second consecutive loss, a 31-22 defeat at the hands of Texas, which really was a tough one to swallow for the Red Raiders. Felt they had a lot of opportunities to play. Maybe a good elixir to start turning things around for the stretch run of the season is getting to play a Kansas team that has had no success this season, and also the last game for a lot of seniors on this Tex team.
That's right. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why on Saturday Jones AT&T Stadium might be a little bit quiet. You mentioned this team has to bounce back from a couple of losses. It's also an 11 a.m. game, which is not something that Tech people generally are very enthusiastic about. And then you have the worst team, at least on paper, coming in as the opponent in Kansas, which has not won a conference game in a couple of years. However, the one thing to kind of get people into this game emotionally is that this is the final home game for 18 seniors, and so they always have the pregame ceremony where the seniors come in and give the roses and whatnot to their moms and family members and so on and so forth. And a couple of Texas Tech seniors talked about the importance of the game this week.
Seems like it's gone by really fast. Seems like just yesterday it was my first start against Kansas, and it's been a lot of fun. I've loved the opportunity of playing here, and I'm glad that, I'm kind of glad that the game's kind of, set right here. I think it's a good time for, the seniors to battle back and end this season with a winning home record and going out strong at the Jones.
I expect it to be real passionate, especially from the seniors. I expect them to have a lot of emotion in this game and go out there and play and have fun. We have to be aggressive in everything that we do, and we have to have fun. I mean, when we're out there, we have to be chest bumping, high-fiving, slapping hands, just everything, anything to keep the crowd into it and keep each other into it. We have to stay motivated through our brotherhood and our family.
It's a defining moment in the lives of these kids because it's the last time they'll play out here. They've been here 4 or 5 years. They put a lot of sweat here. It's an emotional time when you know that something's coming to an end. And in a couple of months' time, most of these guys won't ever play football again. So we want every experience to be good, especially the senior day, parents coming last time to play here. They're coming down to the end. And so we want this to be a special time for them. And number one, we want them to play well and have some success, but they also need to understand that, this is it. This wraps up in here, and something they'll never get to go back in their lifetime and do again. So it's a special time.
Okay, now we're going to talk keys to the game. Don, why don't you get us started with the first one?
Well, on paper, the one thing that Kansas has going for it is the Jayhawks, believe it or not, actually have probably a top running back in the Big 12 in James Sims. He's a Texas kid. He came from Irving MacArthur High School, and even though Kansas is only 1-8 this season, James Sims, believe it or not, comes into Lubbock with a streak of 5 consecutive 100-yard games, and none of those are against soft non-conference opponents. Those are all against Big 12 conference teams. He did it against Texas. He did it against the Sooners in Norman. He did it against Kansas State in Manhattan. He had 100 yards last week against Baylor in Waco, and he also had a 100-yard game against Oklahoma State. And so the game plan, I think, for any Big 12 team this month or from here on out probably is to keep James Sims from going off on you and to limit his effectiveness in the run game.
Another key for the Red Raider defense is forcing turnovers. It's something that they've been talking about for a while, wanting to do, but they haven't been able to. Tech has not forced a turnover in 3 of its last 4 games, including the last 2. No turnovers against Kansas State, no turnovers against Texas. And that's really hampered Tech's ability to put its offense into some favorable positions, to get extra possessions, to change the momentum of the game. Those are all things that creating turnovers can do for your team. And the Red Raiders have been on the losing end of that battle, just have not been able able to find a way to kind of get an interception when it counts, or to force fumbles and really just change the tide. So that's something that they have been saying that they want to do, and they're going to need to show it. It'll kind of help them get things flowing for their offense.
Yep, that's been an issue for the last couple of years now. An issue that is specific to this week, I think, and was a big issue last week, is the need to limit big plays. The Red Raiders obviously did not do that against Texas. Going into last week's game, Tech had given up only 5 pass plays longer than 30 yards all season. Then David Ash comes out and hits them for a 54-yard pass down to the 2-yard line. He hits them for a 75-yard pass, and he also had completed one for 34 yards. And that's going to be critical against Kansas, because Kansas is James Sims notwithstanding, Kansas is the weakest offensive team in the Big 12. 6 of the last 7 weeks, the Jayhawks have given up or have scored 17 points or less. So you want to make this team work its way down the field, have to score on you with 10 or 12 plays. You don't want to give them, the one thing you do not want to do against the Jayhawks is to give them an easy one, which could help build their confidence.
Speaking of easy, I think Tech would like to escape this Saturday with that kind of a win over Kansas. Tech is favored by 25 points, and I think for the Red Raiders, getting a win like that, win going away, get all your seniors to play, make some big plays, get the crowd that is there excited about what you're doing, because after that will come, if they can get past Kansas, a monumental game at Oklahoma State coming up the following week, which will be huge, will be for key bowl positioning. And so I think for Tech, the key will be to just sort of leave no doubt against the Jayhawks on Saturday, and kind of coast into those last 2 weeks of the regular season, kind of feeling good about where you're at.
That's it for our keys to the game this week, and now a word from our sponsor.
When you're sick, you don't want to wait in a doctor's office. Skip the waiting room with waitfromhome.com. Brought to you by UMC Physician Network Services. Check into the clinic online or on your phone, and we'll call or text when your doctor's ready. Your comfort is important. Waitfromhome.com.
Welcome back, everyone, into the UMC Health System Avalanche-Journal pregame show. Now it's time to take a look at the Big 12 Conference games this week and make some predictions. I'm going to start first over here with Nick Kosmider. Let's get it going, Nick, with West Virginia, Oklahoma State.
The interesting thing about West Virginia, as bad as their defense has been, it's been their offense in recent weeks that hasn't been able to catch up. They did a little bit against TCU, but I think until they really start flowing to that area they were at the beginning of the year, they're not going to be able to take a tough road environment like Oklahoma State. I like the Pokes.
I really liked Oklahoma State's resolve last week in that Kansas State game. They came up short, but they really tried hard. Got a lot of experience out of a young quarterback. He may have to go again this week. I like what I saw, and I think there's enough right there. They're going to beat a struggling West Virginia team. Don?
It's Dana Holgerson's another Dana Holgerson trip back to Stillwater, where of course he is really liked and well respected. Oklahoma State coming off that big game against Kansas State, I would be a little concerned about the Cowboys just being able to get up again for the second week in a row coming off that game. But they are at home, as you guys mentioned. West Virginia is struggling in some areas a little bit, so I'll take the Cowboys in this one.
Okay, Don, I'm going to come right back to you. A lot of emotion around this game right here. How about Iowa State at Texas?
The Cyclones went down to Austin the year before last and won, so they are capable. But after what we saw against Texas, or after what we saw from Texas last Saturday, with David Ash really getting it going in the passing game and Jonathan Gray showing those flashes of who he is, I think the Longhorns will have a little too much offense for the Cyclones in this one.
And we'll see the wishbone on the first play, Nick, for the tribute to Darrell Royal. And I'm with Don. I think Texas has enough to get that done. I just don't trust Iowa State's situation at quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that the Longhorns are going to be playing at the top, and I want to underestimate how much playing for Darrell Royal and what he meant to that university is going to mean to the Longhorns. Especially Mac Brown. They're going to want to come out and play the absolute best game. We saw a very complete team last week here in the Jones, so I think Texas is going to go ahead and take care of business there.
Okay, right back to you. Baylor, Oklahoma. OU remembers that loss to the Bears last year. Do we have a repeat?
I don't think so. I mean, mean, Baylor's offense has been playing very well. You know, Nick Florence is among the best offensive players in the country, so he's fit in pretty well there in Robert Griffin's shoes. But it's the Baylor defense that hasn't been getting the job done, and I think Oklahoma's starting to play too well right now to be able to be stopped by the Bear D. So I like the Sooners.
Yeah, they're still playing for a BCS Bowl if they win out. A lot of motivation there. I got OU big over Baylor. Don?
We have seen that the Sooners at least are human and do lose at home. That's been reiterated this year. And we have seen that Baylor can beat Oklahoma. But that was last season. Robert Griffin's not here anymore. And even though Baylor can put points on the board, as you guys mentioned, the combination of Baylor's horrid defense and going into Norman, I think Sooners should take care of business rather easily in this one.
Right back at you, Don. How about Kansas State at TCU?
You know, Kansas State, you wonder at what point they're going to lay an egg and have a game where they're kind of flat and maybe actually commit a few mistakes. You know, potentially this could be it, especially with Colin Klein getting knocked out of that game last week. But Bill Snyder indicated earlier this week that he expects Colin Klein to play, and I don't think you pick against Kansas State until somebody actually beats them. So I'll take the Wildcats in the Battle of the Purple.
Yeah, I think Klein plays and Kansas State rolls. I'm just not going to go against them with the way they're playing football right now. Nick?
Yeah, they're playing for too much. They're too hungry. They're too well disciplined. All those things are going to equate to Wildcat win. Though I do like the way the Horned Frogs are playing. That's a tough, resilient team for as young as it is and with the injuries that it's had. But definitely Kansas State.
There's a look at the Big 12 games this week. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back for Texas Tech and Kansas.
Oh, Movember. Prostate cancer affects 1 in 6 men.
I ain't gonna be no statistic. Who's your mofo?
Welcome back once again. Now it's time to get down to business and take a look at the game that will be early on Saturday at Jones AT&T Stadium. Texas Tech and Kansas. I'm going to start first with Nick Kosmider. How do you see this football game?
Yeah, nothing like a little breakfast with your football. Got to get up bright and early. You know, I don't think that. I think obviously Tech is going to win this game. Kansas just has too much of an uphill climb that they're still trying to get to. Charlie Weiss has already made some improvements with that program. Their defense has been much better as the year has gone on. But Tech, what it needs to do is just concentrate on playing as well as it possibly can, regardless of its opponent. Click on all cylinders and get yourself going with the right mindset into what will be a very huge game next week. I like Tech in this game, 38-17.
Yeah, I'm like you, Nick. I think this is a huge game for Texas Tech because it's a gut check time. They've had 2 very frustrating weeks, and what better cure for that than the Kansas Jayhawks, but they cannot take them lightly. Sims is a very capable running back for KU. Texas Tech, quite frankly, to excuse my language, not that I ever have to, they need to kick Kansas's ass. That's all there is to it. It needs to be a big margin, send the seniors out with a good game, and more importantly, build confidence for the stretch run down the conference. They still got a great chance at a great bowl, Don. I'm going to go Texas Tech 55, Kansas 13.
Wow, that's a pretty authoritative victory for the Red Raiders. I don't know if it'll be quite that decisive, because part of the reason is that with that 11 a.m. kickoff, I don't think Jones AT&T Stadium will be very electric. Texas Tech fans just do not like those early starts, so I think the Red Raiders will kind of have to get themselves going perhaps in this one. As we mentioned, it helps that Kansas is the opponent. Another thing to consider about KU is that defensively they have about every other week have played a pretty good game defensively. They held TCU to 20, they held Oklahoma State to 20, and they held Texas to 21. Now the thing about those games is they were doing it generally in Lawrence. It's been a different, Jayhawks have been a different team on the road, and their defense has not really held up on the road. So with that said, I'll take Texas Tech maybe after a little bit of a slow start and Kansas hangs with them for a while. I think the Red Raiders will kind of roll it up in the second half and win this one 48-14.
And on the note of bright and early, we'll all be up bright and early at the stadium Saturday morning for full coverage of Texas Tech and Kansas. You know where to keep it locked into, LubbockOnline.com, RedRaiders.com for full coverage, photos, videos, written stories by these guys of Texas Tech and Kansas. That's going to do it for this episode of the UMC Health System Avalanche-Journal pregame show. For Nick Kosmider and Don Williams, I'm Zach Long. We'll see you next time.